Your plan has a cost of living adjustment. This is a very important feature in your plan. This is something we guard with all our might, because there are plans. This is one of the benefit provisions that courts are attacking that have questions in certain states about whether or not they're protected under the bargain house rights. But ours has been in place. So what our cost of living adjustment is that your monthly benefit may be adjusted based on changes in the consumer price index, and specifically we use CPIW for Seattle, Tacoma, Bremerton area, so it's a very localized CPI. Your benefit can be increased up to a maximum of 3%, which if the CPI changes up to 3%, your benefit can be increased that much. If the CPI changes more than 3%, we're going to stop at a 3% increase. COLAs are applied July, or they're calculated based on July 1st of every year. They start after you have been retired for 1 full year. So if you're a July 1 retiree or earlier, then when you get around to that next July, you're eligible for your first COLA. If you're an August 1 retiree and you come around to July, you're not eligible for that COLA because you haven't been retired for a year. You have to go to the next July to be eligible for your next COLA, if a COLA is applied. Now, we've done some modeling over the long term. The differences of missing that one COLA are very, very minimal. But there's still an advantage to ensuring. I mean, if you want to maximize things, be aware of that time frame, that it has an impact. As I said, one other very valuable feature is something called banking on your COLA. And what that means is that, because we're capped at 3%, if the CPI is higher than 3%, we're going to stop at 3%, but anything over 3% is going to go into what we call the bank. So let's say we come to the next year and we're only at 2%. So we're at 4%, I put a percent in the bank. The next year I'm 2%. I'm going to take that 1% out, and I'm going to still bring you up to 3%, even though the CPI was below. So that bank, it will be, and we'll make withdrawals and additions as we go. So we try and do everything we can to keep you at 3%, assuming the economy is running that way.
So we're getting 100% of the CPI up to 3?
Correct. So the question is, are we getting 100% of the CPI? And you are getting the change in the CPIW, Seattle, Tacoma, Bremerton, up to a maximum of 3%. Now, it's not at this point. We're not going to take money away if that goes negative. We're just not going to add anything.
Unless there's some bank.
Well, no, we're always going to add if we're below 3% and you're eligible and there's COLA in the bank, we will apply whatever's in that bank.
So what has the bank gotten up to?
A long time ago, it actually got up to like 8 or 9%. I mean, it got pretty high for a while. We went for a very long run. And the question was, how big does the bank get? There was a point we went like over a decade without a COLA less than 3% because the bank got so big when we have really positive economic returns. Now, the bank's been depleted because we've had lower economic returns. I know we just got the most recent COLA information, and I think this year's COLA, it was less than 3%. It was like it was either 2.1 or 2.7, I think, was the most current thing. But that information is on our website. So there is a COLA. It's just not a full 3% COLA. But there is a small COLA. All right. Working after retirement. I've mentioned that a few times. In specific, I mentioned the career change benefit, and I label that because that's one of the benefits the board did pass. So quickly, if you come back to work, so you retire, you're done. And then you say, this retirement thing is not for me, I'm bored out of my gourd and I want to go back and work at the firehouse because I miss the guys. And you come back to left covered employment. What will happen is your pension will be stopped. You will quit receiving that pension and you will re-enter membership. You will get new service credit. Your salary is reported. And then when you say, okay, now I'm really done, you will re-retire. You'll go through the entire process all again. All new choices, all new calculation. We'll add the service credit. We'll look at your salary. We will completely re-retire you at that point. But you don't get any of the benefits that you lost or that you didn't receive. Okay, so it's a stop and a restart with a new calculation if you come to left covered employment. Okay, so if you're considering something that might be left employment, you better be real careful because we've had some people experienced firefighters go to a small rural municipality in kind of a fire chief-like capacity that they were assured it wasn't a left eligible position. It turned out it actually was, and they'd been receiving benefits for 3 years, and guess what? They and the municipality had to pay back every single penny. And I've seen some of those bills exceed $500,000 in payments. So it's something to be aware of, something to check out very carefully if you're thinking about coming back to a fire-related or even public or law enforcement-related capacity.
And that's just in the state, right? You could go to-
Correct. You can go out of state. That's if you come into a LEF eligible. So if you go to another state, I don't care. If you go to work at Walmart as a greeter, I don't care. You can go to private sector. It has no impact whatsoever on your LEF pension. The question was, does it have any? If I go out of state, does that have an effect? No, we're only talking about if you come to a LEF eligible position. The stop scenario comes into play. Likewise, if you, let's say, you take your public government skills and say, I'm going to go to work, I'm not going to be police or fire, but I want to go be a government sector. I want to use my skills in the government sector. I want to do good deeds. I want to go be the new retirement nerd. I'm sure, Markley's probably, looking at some, he's probably eyeing me going, hey, I could probably do that job. They probably could too. But, so let's say you want to come to public service. You want to go to work for the state. You want to go be a teacher. If you return to another position that's eligible for one of the other public plans, public employee retirement, teacher retirement, state patrol, any of these other plans, public safety employees retirement system. If you come to another governmental plan, you now have choices because we recognized early on that because we have earlier careers in the public safety side, if you retire in your 50s, you may have easily 10, 15 years worth of time you could reasonably work, maybe just not under the physical constraints of being a firefighter. So we wanted to enable you to change careers without having a penalty for just reaching the end of your career in the fire service. So you have choices now. Again, this is a bill passed by the board. So when you go to retire, when you come back to that other public, say you come to a PERS job, you get a choice. You can choose to have your benefits suspended, your LEF pension, you can have that suspended, and you can accrue a second pension in the other system, say PERS, and if you work for 10 years, that's a 20% benefit. Keeping in mind, all the other systems have, like LEF, a 5-year vesting period. So if you're not going to work for 5 years and you know it, you don't want to try and accrue a second pension because you're never going to get a pension out of it. You have to have 5 years to get a pension. But you can accrue a second pension at the same time you're receiving salary. Now notice the difference. There's a word difference, suspended versus stopped. Very specific terms. What does suspended mean in this case? What that means is all those payments you were supposed to receive, instead of being paid to you directly, because you can't be in receipt of the pension while accruing a second one, we're going to ship those off to an account. And we're going to put those to the side for you. So every month is still going to be paid out. It's just going to go over here instead of going to you. When you separate from that other system and or retire from that system, your LEF benefit will be restarted and you are going to be receiving all of those payments that were suspended. That can be done in a lump sum. Those can be calculated into your pension to increase your monthly payment, because now we're just taking that pool of money and spreading it out over your lifetime, kind of annuitizing it. You have distribution options, but you're not actually losing those payments. You just can't be in receipt of them if you take the first option. The other option is you can say, I have no interest, I'm perfectly fine, I have no need to accrue a second pension. So the choice you can make is that you can choose to continue to receive your LEF pension and receive your salary at the same time, but you cannot, you're ineligible, you're stopped from accruing a second pension, period. You just can't, you don't get that option. But you get to continue to receive your pension and your salary. So it all depends on what works for you and what's important to you and what your financial circumstances are as to what choice you might make. Question? That's a good question. He's asking that when the money, when your benefit's suspended and it's off to the side, is it subject to any changes in the plan, essentially? And the answer is yes. COLAs will be applied to it. It does get a nominal interest amount, kind of like just your contribution, same rate of savings as your contribution, so there are some slight increases, but COLAs will be applied to your benefit calculations. If there was a change in benefits that had an impact on existing benefits, which frankly is not likely to occur just because of the cost involved, anything that would impact your benefit will be applied to that money because that was a benefit stream. So yeah, it'll continue to accrue changes in the benefit structure as they may be. Most notably, that's going to be the COLA though. That's a really good question. But the bottom line is the most important thing is that as a retiree, if you want to come back to work and you want to do it in government service, you now have some flexibility to change your career path rather than just getting stuck. Because it used to be if you came back to any public service, your benefits stopped, period. You didn't have a choice. So, last, I wanted to point out some resources. Now, when you came in, we had the LEOFF board website up, and I have a site for it on my last slide. We have a lot of information on our website about what the board's doing, but we also post a lot of the handouts that we put out there. We put out a lot of useful links. We have a Twitter account, we have a Facebook account, we have a YouTube account, and we're always publishing information about the plan and retirement planning. So I would encourage you to take a look at that information and follow our feeds and look at our website, stay up to date on your plan. But the more important one as you're approaching retirement is the Department of Retirement Systems website. So on their website, two most important things is one, they have an education page out there which has a ton of resources, including a retirement planning workbook. They have frequently asked questions and all kinds of checklists, similar to the one, I know there's one in the back room. We took a lot of their checklists and incorporated them into this document as a retirement need to know type document. There's a ton of information about getting ready to retirement. They have information about finding a financial planner. Anything you want to know about the retirement process, when you should be doing what, is going to be out on their checklist and information. They also have retirement seminars. I put a schedule of the most live retirement seminars. I highly recommend if you're within 5 years, attend one of their retirement seminars. It's not just this type of stuff that I'm presenting, but they get into some of the tax, they bring in tax professionals, Social Security professionals, and other folks to answer questions. They have videos of some of those online too, so you can go out to their site and look at them on videos. And they have lots of calculators as well. The retirement account access, you can create a retirement account. You can go to online access, and when you do that, it's going to access your specific account information. You can request a retirement estimate using your actual account information. I advise you that when you get a year from retirement to request a formal estimate, an actual formal estimate, rather than they have some calculator, but do a formal estimate. Here's the reason that's important. What that causes them to do is a full audit on your account. If there is any kind of anomaly on your account, whether it's reporting from your employer, service credit, anything, and I worked on those accounts for years, it happens. You want to find out earlier rather than later, because if there's an anomaly that isn't sorted out by the time you get to retirement, they're not going to pay you until they have all the information straightened out, and it takes time to get those straightened out. So request an estimate. It'll force them to audit your account. You have a year, it gives them time, or 3 times, but it gives them time to make sure your account is as current as absolutely possible, and you're not going to have any delays in your retirement. When you get 90 days or 3 months from your expected retirement date, that is the point you actually want to go in, and you can go from that estimate, the end of that estimate process, and said, yes, I'm ready to retire. You can retire online through your account process. Do that 3 months in advance. Now, you can do it on paper still. You don't have to use online if you're not comfortable with the computers, don't like the security, whatever it may be. You can do all this through paper as well, but do it 90 days in advance. Again, it gives them the opportunity to make sure everything gets put into place, that there's no issues with the account, the processes. It gives you the best safety margin to ensure your initial benefit stream is started on time.
So in the estimator, they have the calculator for taxes as well. They have a couple of options you can pick from as far as dependents. Most of the folks that I'm picking, like if they're married, do they pick 2 as yourself and your spouse as dependents? Because there's a significant difference in the taxes coming out of your return.
You know, I don't know what the most common is. It's not a figure they've ever shared with me. So honestly, I don't know. But going back to the question about taxes, so I was saying that some of the retirement calculators, they do have some estimators for taxes based on what deductions you put in and whatnot. So you can get some of that information, what that impact would be. You can get an idea, at least from the pure tax standpoint, when you go through the formal estimate process. So the Department of Retirement Systems, again, I noted their website, www.drs.wa.gov. Same thing with they have a lot of similar publications available out there, and this as well. So last, and Greg asked me to add some quick things on the Social Security side. government pension offset, windfall elimination provision. These are things you need to wear. Now, let me ask, in this area, do you guys participate in Social Security? Up here, okay, so this is definitely relevant for you. And it's not surprising because from the last time we studied it, less than 10% of the firefighters are participate in Social Security based on their fire service. I think it's like, I want to say 8.2 or 9.2, somewhere right in that. So it's not surprising. So the government pension offset, this applies to Social Security benefits that you receive as a spouse or widow or widower. So if your spouse qualifies for Social Security benefits, you as their spouse are entitled to a benefit under Social Security rules. However, there are whole kinds of reasons for it, but what they're going to say though, but if you get a government pension where you did not pay into Social Security, we're going to offset that spousal benefit by 2/3 of your governmental pension. In your guys' case, in most cases, that's probably going to reduce that spousal benefit to 0. Now, the fundamental basis behind that was that when they created Social Security back in the 1930s, the idea was there was a breadwinner and the spouses stayed home and took care of the family and never worked. So they said, because you made that sacrifice to stay and work for the family, we will pay you a benefit. What that design never anticipated was that years later, spouses started going to work and even accruing their own benefits. And so they said, well, you know what, that no longer fits our plan design, so we don't want to pay, we're paying out money that we don't need to pay out any longer. In particular, that for folks like you that aren't paying, now you're getting a pension where you didn't pay in for Social Security, but you're still getting a benefit. And somebody said, we don't like that, so we're going to take that away. And likewise, if you were getting Social Security benefits, your spousal benefit would be offset by your own Social Security benefit. So all they're doing is leveling the playing field with everybody else. So it's not just an attack on public safety, it's still something that would have occurred even if you had Social Security benefits. Spousal benefits are offset by Social Security benefits. He's asking about in terms of the impacts on the government pension, in terms of the ability of the spouse to choose a different benefit. And what we're really talking about here is the pension or the benefit you would receive as the spouse of somebody who's receiving Social Security. So their benefit's going to be calculated based on their record. You're going to get or be eligible for a benefit. It's that benefit you're eligible for that's going to be offset. It doesn't have an impact on their benefit.
Theirs isn't reduced.
Yeah, their benefit isn't reduced. We're talking about $1 you would receive. Let me make sure that we're not crossing over lines, because there's a second provision, which is probably more what you're talking about. And that's the windfall elimination provision. So now we're talking, rather than a spousal benefit you're eligible for, now we're talking about your benefit, right? So in the case where you're receiving a governmental pension, didn't pay into Social Security, that if you had prior employment where you qualified for a Social Security benefit, or if at any point you work, which happens, you already got your 40 quarters, you qualify for a Social Security benefit, and then you work, but you don't pay for Social Security taxes on later employment, it's going to affect how much you're going to receive. And what happens, the way Social Security is calculated, it's a complex formula, but the bottom line is lower salary earners are going to receive the most benefit because of how the benefit's calculated. Right? It's just the way their formula happens to work. Higher salaried earners are going to get a lower benefit. It's trying to be an equitable situation. Social Security is looking at you saying, well, if you worked back here, like I worked in high school and in early college and minimum wage jobs, and I qualify for Social Security. If I only looked at that salary compared to what I make today, I'm getting a pretty big benefit. I'm getting a higher benefit because it's based on a low calculated salary. But then if I later had a big high salary but didn't pay Social Security, well, there's some that look at that going, hey, wait a minute, you're getting this low salary, even though you had all this time in a high-paying job. Had you been paying Social Security, your benefit would have been lower. We don't really think that's fair. So they're going to identify that you had higher salary where you did not pay into Social Security, and they're going to change the formula. You're not going to get that favorable calculation that would have only used your lower salary. They're going to change the formula, and the bottom line is, and I don't have the exact numbers, actually I have a video that talks about it, that would basically, it's going to offset a large portion of that overall benefit that you would receive. So the question is that is a survivor receiving your pension based on time not paying Social Security taxes. Is that going to affect their receipt of Social Security question? They're not going to inherit your reductions, bottom line. All right, so I've gone probably much longer than I should have, but hopefully it's been useful information. So just some quick final words. You've heard me say it several times, consider, there's a lot of complexity. This is one little piece and we've already gone a couple hours and barely scratched the surface. So you get into the depths, you start talking to Marianne, everybody else, it's complex. I highly advise getting financial plans. Use the retirement tools at the Department of Retirement Systems. Use the online application to do your retirement processing again. 12 months out, get an estimate. 3 months out, do your filing. Make sure you put in all the forms. Sign everything, send in everything that you need to do to not hold up your process. And also, make sure you keep your beneficiary, even today, keep your address and beneficiary information up to date. Anytime something changes, keep it up to date, because if something happens, we want to make sure that your designated beneficiary survivors receive what they're entitled to. And that's something people just don't think about, they don't do, but you can update your beneficiaries online. The question is, about the timing of, if you're trying to make maneuvers with different financial sources, moving them into financial plans, and then you want to use that to go into one of the purchase options, how does that timing flow, given you have to do this at the time of retirement? I don't know, but it's a question I'm going to actually go explore a little bit further to make sure I understand how the department is handling that timing question, because again, I'm advising, hey, go file 3 months. Now, you don't have to do it 3 months in advance. You can do it, I wouldn't do it any later than 30 days in advance, just to not have any problems. So you can get closer, that's an advisement. I will have to get a little bit more detailed in terms of that. That's a good question. I don't know that's the mechanics of that, but that's usually where I would say, this is where I'm in the department's territory, and they're the administrators, so they're the ones who should be answering that question. But I'm going to find out just so I have a better answer. But it's a very good question. And again, this whole process is about learning what you do and don't know and figuring out what are the questions, because there are a lot of questions, there's a lot of moving pieces. So it's very important to your overall retirement security. So I hope that's helped. This has been helpful today. We've covered a lot of information. I hope it's helping you get started in this journey, and it very much is. Again, I have my contact information. I am absolutely a resource. The board team, we are always a resource as the Department of Retirement. You're always welcome to give us a call, and we'll do everything we can to answer. If it's not a question that we know the answer to, we know where to get the answer without a doubt. So we can get those questions. And again, we have our website. The @LEFF2 board is our handle for Facebook and our Twitter feed. And we have a LEFF account on YouTube. We also have a new video that we've just produced on the Social Security piece. I guess after we're done, since I'm well over time. I'll be happy to play it. I'd be interested in having some folks view it, and I'd love to get some feedback from you guys.